Have you heard of Rosedale Masonic Lodge in Kansas? If you haven't, it's a pretty amazing lodge, and there's some pretty cool history behind it as well that has connection to the lodge that I was raised in. We're going to get through all that and more this evening. We have an excellent guest, actually the sitting master of that lodge, to help walk us through all that history and more. So stick with us. We have a great show lined up for you right after this on Historical Light.
Welcome back to the Historical Light Masonic Podcast, dedicated to illuminate our past and bring our Masonic history to light since 2016. And now, enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Historical Light. My name's Alex Powers. I'm your host. Happy to be back with you. And we have an amazing guest this evening, Brother Ryan Spencer from Rosedale Masonic Lodge. Brother, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. So I want to get started with a few icebreakers here just to get to know you as a person before we really dive into the content of the episode this evening. So tell me, what is it that got you involved in Masonry in the first place?
Well, I was originally, I'm from Kansas City, and I moved down to the Valley, as they call it, Phoenix, in Arizona, after I went to grad school. And I was down there with a girl that I had met in grad school, but I didn't have any friends or family in town or anything like that. And so it was something that, I'd already, I was aware of. I grew up knowing of the Freemasons, but never had really seriously considered, joining anything like that. But it was something where I felt, this was a great opportunity for me to, make some friends, some connections in a city that I was, not very historically known in, and something I could spend some of my time and energy outside of work doing, and hopefully contribute to my community as well. So it was a little bit of everything. I had no idea about the the esoteric and ritualistic aspects of it. It was, to me at first, it was definitely more of a social thing. But luckily, of course, as I've gotten involved, it's become something obviously that I take a lot of pride in when it comes to the more esoteric side of it as well. So it's
That's
kind
fantastic.
of evolved over time. Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned, how you came to know it. Have you discovered like family history in Masonry at all?
I actually don't. I'm the first member of my family that was a Mason. It turns out my stepmother's father was down in Parsons, Kansas. I don't know if you've been down there before, but he was a very big business member in the small town there. So of course he was a member of their little lodge in Parsons, Kansas. But my direct family was not. No, I'm the first. I wish I was cool enough to say that I had a long history of generations of members, but I'm proud to say I'm a first generation Mason.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually really cool. I always get a kick talking out of guys that don't have that family history, because a lot of times those that do, like mine was a little bit of a weird situation because I'm fifth generation, but I didn't know any of those guys really. My uncle was a Mason, but we didn't really talk about that till later on, great grandparents, all that. Besides seeing it on the headstones, I didn't have that connection. But I feel like a lot of guys with that family connection, that's what really gets them in the door. But I think it's fascinating to talk to guys that don't have that real plug and see, genuinely what brought them to Freemasonry and also what kept them around, which is fantastic to hear that that's also shifted with you as well.
Well, I think, I think it's been talked to about ad nauseum, of course, but, for the craft going forward, we really need to be, it's great to have those legacies in there, and it's great to have people that, know about it already to give you a good solid foundation, but you can't survive off legacies alone. You're going to need to be a combination of that plus these new guys that are maybe just now learning about it or just now hearing about it. Maybe they they read Dan Brown and they're interested. You never know.
100%. And I mean, that's our mission at large, right? To make good men better. So if we're only addressing legacies, then we're not really hitting that core mission. So
Definitely.
it's fantastic to get out there. Now, we're talking this evening about Rosedale Masonic Lodge. You're sitting master there, and we're going to hear all about the amazing history there. I've got to ask, is that the only lodge you've belonged to? Is that where you were raised through as a Mason, or did you transfer there from somewhere else?
Yeah. So like I said, I was originally in Arizona. So I was initiated in what was originally called Chandler Lodge number 34 in Chandler, Arizona. That's in the east side of the valley there. And I was actually the last member initiated in Chandler because it was in December, and then as of January 1st that next year, they merged with Thunderbird Lodge. So it became Chandler Thunderbird, and Chandler didn't exist anymore by itself. So
right on.
That lodge, my home lodge actually doesn't exist anymore. It's a combined lodge. So I was lucky enough to come back home and move in with my family, and wanted to, once I got established in a job and all of that, I wanted to reignite my Masonic journey that I had started. And so I found a few lodges obviously around me. Living in Overland Park's nice because you've got plenty of options around you. So I looked at a couple lodges and eventually landed on that, as you mentioned, Rosedale Lodge over in Meriam, Kansas. So I've been there ever since.
That's fantastic, man. I cannot wait to dive in and hear all about the fascinating history here. Before we do, I need to give a quick shout out to our Patreon supporters. Wrong screen, dummy. Jeez. Our Patreon supporters. We've been around since 2016. We're dedicated to Masonic history. That's what we do around here and what we focus on. So if you guys like what you see and want to help support us, keep growing and keep the lights on, bringing you more Masonic historical content, you can support us by going to the website, historicallight.com. And under the support section, you can support the show through Patreon. We have several different levels there, and you can get some pretty cool perks for which level you choose. We got custom lapel pins, breast jewels, all the fancy jazz, but you help us keep going and growing, bringing you more awesome content like tonight. So, brother, let's dive in. I want to hear all about the fascinating history of Rosedale. I've got to shoot a plug, though, a huge thank you to you guys. And I know you were kind of instrumental behind this, but just recently we held a pretty cool event, the second one annually in Kansas, being Masonicon, Kansas. And you guys were our main host venue for the day. And man, it went over amazing. It was a perfect facility for it. And just so thankful to you guys for putting faith in us to bring that event to your space.
Like you had come to me and brought the idea to me. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to go for the inaugural year, the first year, but I was definitely very excited to be able to provide that opportunity, and I know the brothers are definitely excited to show off our lodge to the folks that came, and hopefully if it worked out well, we can do it again. We definitely appreciate doing it and had a great time. I mean, I was listening to the recap with Kellerman. I just wanted to echo everything he said. The speakers were great. I mean, it blew me away. I wasn't able to watch Ryan Flynn because I had to go set up lunch. But man, everything else was just so much fun, and everybody was just an amazing speaker. The topics were great. I mean, everything was great. The cantos were great. I mean, everything perfect. I highly recommend everybody watching come next year, wherever it is.
Yes, please do. It's the amazing thing. Anyone that's watching that's been involved with these Masonicons, it reignited my Masonic experience in a time that I was kind of struggling. I got invited up to Attleboro, Massachusetts for the Boston Masonicon up there, and just changed the face of Masonry for me, and has really been a highlighted experience from then on. And Kansas has really, really good stuff going on. But what we don't often see here is that much outside knowledge coming in. A lot of the events we have are, local guys, or you get one guy that's flown in. And the amazing thing about these Masonicons is, I mean, we get a whole list of guys from all around the country and beyond, all in one jam-packed day that is just focused around Masonic education. And it's amazing. Not just the speakers, but we also get brothers traveling in from all over the country and beyond. We had brothers from Canada, and we had the Grand Master of Alaska there last year. It was just brothers you don't get to see on an average day-to-day basis maybe guys you have a relationship with through social media, but for those events that you get to have those guys in the same room and break bread with one another is quite an honor to, be able to hold something like that here in Kansas and bring that experience to everybody. So I definitely appreciate you guys for helping us out with that. We would love to come back and do another one there. And hopefully everyone that's watching here will keep their ears out for that next date coming in 2024 and come join us as well, because it'll be an experience for sure. Now, we're going to dive into the history of Rosedale Lodge, but I'm going to throw in one tidbit that I think is pretty neat and a little connection that I kind of have there. Obviously, I've visited Rosedale Lodge before, but I was raised in Lenexa Lodge. And Lenexa Lodge and Rosedale are kind of the exact same building, but Rosedale's like times 2. It's like double the size. Now, I don't know for sure, but the story I was always told was that Lenexa had theirs built. The guys from Rosedale, like, yeah, it's a great design. Why, spend money on another architect or whatever? Just double the size. I'm like, fantastic idea. But it is. It's like the exact same layout. I wish Lenexa would have doubled the size because it's perfect. I don't know that they really have room for it on their little plot of land there. Maybe if they ditched the parking lot, but it would still be pretty tight. But it's perfect. The size you guys chose works out immaculate. Obviously, especially for an event like Masonicon, it's perfect to be able to house that many people and have room to move around and set up all kinds of extra stuff. But fantastic space, especially with all the new development that's coming to that part of Johnson County. Mm-hmm. You guys are kind of right in the hub of it.
Yeah, being right there off of 35 is definitely a good aspect of having guys that are wanting to come from around the area be able to quickly and easily access the building. That's for sure. I mean, you've got lodges like Shawnee and Overland Park, which are amazing lodges, but maybe a little bit farther off the main path.
Most definitely. So let's get into the very beginning. When did Rosedale Lodge, when was it chartered, and how did it get its first beginnings?
It was chartered, I believe. I apologize. I don't have the dates all in front of me like I thought I would. I know I had mentioned before to you, I believe it was 1891, and was originally, I don't know how many viewers are aware of the setup of Kansas City. Originally, you had Kansas City, Missouri, and you had Kansas City, Kansas. Well, Kansas City, Kansas was kind of the second part of that. That was the aftergrowth that kind of spread across the river. And so as Kansas City, Kansas grew, it kind of started to develop its own little suburbs too. And one of those suburbs was called Rosedale. And so it was never really a big area, but it was just right there along Southwest Boulevard, and was a very popular area because of Southwest Boulevard. That's where that first initial growth outside of the metro happened. It was right there along the boulevard on your way down into Johnson County. And so a lot of that growth contributed to the need for members of what was the Kansas City, Kansas area Masons to form their own lodge there in a little suburb called Rosedale. And so the first lodge building was built right there on Southwest Boulevard, and it's still there today. It was well known to be the Strasser Hardware Building, and if you're from Kansas City, you know Strasser Hardware because it's a huge building now farther up the street. But originally, we owned the building and we were upstairs meeting, and then Strasser was technically a tenant of ours downstairs. That, of course, at the time, it was just a little hardware store, maybe some lumber.
Right.
Like that. But eventually, of course, they grew and they've got their own huge complex there up the road.
Man, I'm sitting here as the history nerd beating myself up because I've known both those tidbits, but I've never connected the two. And I'm sitting here thinking, Rosedale Lodge, I'm an idiot. What? Because, I've had that conversation so many times about that hardware store, and everyone's like, there used to be a lodge up there. Yeah. And I haven't personally gone in, but they say, because I don't know if the top floor is open now, but someone was telling me before you could go in and there was like merchandise on the top floor, but when you go up there, you could still like see the remnants of what was a Masonic lodge. Mm-hmm. And I'd always wanted to get up there, did not realize, never can feel so stupid at the moment, but connecting Rosedale Lodge with that. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
And
That's really, really cool.
You don't even need to go inside the building. If you just drive down the street and you kind of pull off there, you can see the square and compasses still in the stonework there on that top story up there. So
That's so cool.
that was the original building. Yeah.
That is so cool. And yeah, I peeked over. It looks like charter date was February 18th, 1891. So you were right on there with the year.
Okay. I'm on the
Fantastic.
historical light. I don't want to get my historical date.
Exactly. I do want to give a quick shout out over on the Facebook side. We've got a couple comments coming through. One from my wife, Yvette. Thank you so much for sharing this out like you always do. And also, Brother Justin Staley is joining us here. He's saying, need that ambassador, Jewel. 100% you do. Hit up the website. You can do it, man. Appreciate you guys. So now we talked about, and I may have missed this because I got so excited about those two facts of Rosedale being connected with the hardware building there. But how did that break off and you guys end up in Meriam?
So with the, and I'm going to get too historical on the Kansas City aspect of it, but as Kansas City and more likely Johnson County started to really thrive and grow, that population center moved from kind of that area right along the boulevard there and started to kind of work its way south and west. And so as it did, the location of a lot of their members at the time really started to move. A lot of the members' homes were now starting to be in that Johnson County area. And not only that, of course, you've got the population booms and the Masonic booms that we had as far as, 1920s and then the final one after in the aftermath of World War II during the baby boom time. So you were starting to get so many members that Strasser hardware building, as beautiful as it was, just wasn't holding the membership anymore. So they decided to go ahead and move it a little more south and west, and the location they decided on at the time was really not very populated. I mean, Overland Park was definitely growing. You had the Northeast Johnson County areas, but over there in Little Meriam, still very, very still kind of quiet. There's still a lot of land up for sale. And so they bought that plot of land in 1971, I believe, and decided to go ahead and build there. There was no community center or anything like that. No IKEA or Hobby Lobby. It was
things have changed just a little bit.
Things have changed a little bit, yeah. But yeah, it was an amazing idea for a building, that's for sure. And it's amazing to be able to be in a building that was built as a lodge, not something that was repurposed into a lodge. And that's why the Grand Lecturers love coming to Rosedale to the School of Instruction, because ours is laid out as close as possible to the correct layout for a lodge, so it's easy for them to kind of show the line work and show the seats and all that. And it makes for a really good environment. And like you said, the size makes it ideal too, because you really get that good echo in there. You can really get
definitely
get a good dramatic effect. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about, because I've been to a district school of instruction there, and it works perfect with the size. But I bet why those lecturers like it as well, because you do have the extra side-to-side room like that. Because often with the schools of instruction, especially in Johnson County, Kansas City area, we get more brothers than in the rural areas show up for those schools of instruction. So even though you've got the 2 rows on the side, sometimes you'll get even a 3rd row of seating. And in those other lodges that are a little smaller, that often throws your lines off. And then you're kind of customizing the work to the room. But with Rosedale Lodge having that big of a layout, it really allows you to stay true and actually teach those lines, which, our lecturers love to be spot on. So
yeah, they also love to be the center of attention. So there's plenty of room to see them.
This is true. Now, you guys have done some pretty cool things there in the recent years. When I went to set up for Masonicon, I saw something that I'd never seen there before, and that being a bunch of visual elements installed along the wall. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What brought that about?
Sure. So that was actually my idea for this year, that I wanted to really start to develop the inside of our lodge building. We had a few big projects going on the outside and what we call the unveils of the lodge, to make sure that we were doing the structural improvements and things like that. But I definitely wanted to make sure that we were doing everything we could to make sure that the inside of the lodge was as, I don't want to say dramatic, but as symbolic and esoteric and compatible with our degrees if possible.
Right.
So one of the things that I've always thought about when I've been watching our lectures in our room is that our lecturer that does them all for us, Galen Graves, a lot of your viewers probably know him. He does an amazing job with lectures, absolutely amazing. But he's describing these things in our lectures, and it's just a description, and it's hard for the candidate or the brother to really be able to visualize what he's talking about sometimes. And so what I wanted to provide was a way for these gentlemen in these positions to be able to actually have them pick him up, walk him over to the different areas of the room, show him these things on the wall, show him these representations, and really get an idea of what the symbolism behind these degrees is really about.
Right.
So what I did was I kind of decided on a general size that I wanted for all of the items, made a list of everything in all 3 degrees that I wanted to be there, and then started to bring out my crafty side and create every one of those aspects in a approximately 12, 18-inch area to buy a set of shelves for them and get them up on the wall, so that way everybody can see and you can appreciate them as you go through the degree work.
100%. Honestly, it screwed me up getting in there to set up for Masonicon because it's very eye catching. I'm like, what the hell? I've never seen anything in that, in a lodge like that before, but it's perfect. And, one of the things that I can kind of tie it to, we talk about how we keep our history versus how they used to keep history and how we need to do it now, being before the whole thing was get into a fireproof building, and they did that to the best of their means. But in today's day and age, we can do that better. We have digitization, we have better storage tactics, all that good stuff. So when I saw that visualization in the lodge there, it reminded me of the tracing boards, right? But in a much more modern and better fashion than just the paper. You've brought it to life in 3D. Yeah. It's eye-catching. It's not just, a slide or a flat piece of paper on the wall that works, but you've brought it to life in a modern way, which I think is fantastic.
Well, yeah, and we still have. I printed out and draped up the 3 tracing boards on the east. That way you can still see those as well. But being able to see, especially things, like all of the symbols in the 3rd degree. You go for a whole litany of that. Being able to have physical corn, wine, and oil there for them to be able to see right next to the picture of the waterfall. It's amazing.
100%.
Be able to see what the 2 lines bordering the circle with the point in the middle and then the Bible above it. I mean, things like that. It's hard for people to really visualize what that looks like. And we have the slides. We have the real old slides that are, they used to use all the time. But again, Galen does such a great job of just going through the script so beautifully and just having it flow like a conversation that I wanted to really be able to build on that and make sure it was something that the candidates and the voters can really enjoy and appreciate and experience while they were there.
Yeah. No, I think it's fantastic, and I think it's an amazing use to use a modern mind into the teachings of Freemasonry, because I think we all love what we know of Freemasonry and our historical items and stuff, but I do often wonder if it connects in the same way with new guys coming in. So to see these modern means of kind of communicating those aspects, I think that's amazing. And it does make me ponder, maybe that hits just a little bit better in their understanding and their recollection. Maybe it, stands out in their mind a little bit more, because you don't see that other places. It really stopped me in my tracks when I walked in your lodge room, because I'm like, whoa, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And there it is. It's stuck. And I'm going to remember those items.
Well, and another thing, we always pride ourselves for Rosedale to do is on the north side of the lodge, we actually have all of a layout of all of our past masters, their portraits, so they're all of them in chronological order. So we have those old lithographs of our first masters, but it goes all the way up to a really goofy picture of me from the past few years. So it's another way for gentlemen coming in and that are interested in our lodge to be able to say we honor and appreciate and remember our history through these representations of these gentlemen, but we also recognize that the newest master is a past master too. So they're all on that wall to be able to remember and know where we came from.
Definitely. So, we're talking about those men that have been a part of the lodge through ages, which I better throw this in because it's kind of cool. You guys have the famous Gary Folk there,
We
which
did.
was cool for me because I've known that guy since I was a little kid. Never knew he was a Mason. And it's like, you become a Mason, it's a small world, right? But he's worked with my parents for years down at Electronic Supply
Oh yeah.
in Kansas City. And then, I can't remember exactly when it was that we crossed paths, but he knew my father-in-law, Angelo, before he passed away. And it was just, small world. So
Gary's been doing his job. He's the secretary emeritus, uh, but he actually, this will be his last year. He's passing the baton of secretary, and we're training a new one. He's looking forward to a little more free time in his life, I'm sure.
he enjoys taking a breath these days.
Yes,
Jeez.
yeah.
What a slacker.
He's only involved in 7 or 8 lodges.
Exactly. He stays a busy guy for sure.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the important figures through your lodge's history that you might have heard stories about. Some of the past masters or members, anyone that you've heard some cool stories about through your lodge's history.
Obviously probably the biggest one, other than our infamous Gary, is a gentleman that hopefully a good number of your listeners will recognize, and that's that of Eldon Masters. Eldon was huge in our lodge, and even bigger in the about shrine. He was a vital member of the Masonic community when it came to Johnson County. He was always there at all of the national, or not the national, and definitely the statewide conferences when it came to anything he was involved in. And that's hard to do when you get as old as he was. I mean, it becomes a lot to do. But, he gladly did it. He thought that the next generation of Masonry was important to nurture, and that showed when it came time for his funeral. That was the most people I'd ever seen at a memorial service in my entire life.
Wow.
And, that the hall at the shrine was absolutely packed, and we were proud to say that he was a member at Rosedale, but his impact on people outside of just his Blue Lodge was completely immeasurable. I can't begin to go on about it.
Right.
But so he's definitely going to be missed. But in recent history, that's probably the biggest member that we had that most people would probably recognize in the area for sure.
That's fantastic, man. So one other question I got for you guys, because you do have a ton of history, and now learning about the history going back to actual Rosedale, the hardware store, everything over there. One thing we talk a lot on this show about is our records and archival and digitization. So I just got a question. How are you guys keeping your records, and do you have plans to digitize or anything of that means?
So, we don't even have paper copies of our minutes anymore. It's all done electronically. And we were very happy to be a part of the digitalization project with Grand Lodge to make sure that charter got digitized for security's keeping. I will definitely say we probably don't take advantage of the scanning abilities that we have available to us. We have quite a bit of records that we do have, and part of what we've been doing, kind of like I talked about with the keeping up on the inside of the lodge and the outside of the lodge. Some of those projects include going through a lot of those old closets and
definitely
and sorting through all these just thousands of the thousands of pieces of paperwork that we have. So it's something where we've gone through a lot of it, and we've sorted through what is important and what isn't, and keeping a lot of that safe. Obviously, we've got things like fireboxes and things like that.
Right.
But I agree that we, and I would say a lot of other lodges are in the same boat, and where you have these rooms that just have these piles of notebooks and binders, and
right.
you just don't know what's in it. So I would definitely encourage anybody that has a lodge that they haven't done a clean out to actually get in there and see what you got. Because you know what, we found all sorts of really cool stuff back. I mean, you've got ciphers from the 1800s. You've got,
Wow.
stuff from DMLA from, who knows when. So it seems like a chore, but you never know what you're going to find. You might find some really cool stuff. So I definitely encourage any lodge that hasn't done that to take that opportunity to go through what they have to see what's back in those old boxes. But as you mentioned, I'll say we're guilty of it too. Is making sure that you take advantage of the resources that your Grand Lodge or your Lodge of Research has available to you, and get that stuff digitized, because paper is not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And having an digital copy, I think, would probably behoove all of us. And I don't use the word behoove very lightly.
100. Well, I'll go ahead and announce this here. This is kind of a secret. No one knows just yet. But our Grand Lodge of Kansas, because as you kind of hinted there, about the Kansas Lodge of Research program. We've got the archival kits that Brother Justin, who's in the comments, will probably be reaching out to you to see if we can get you guys on that list. But we've had 2 of those kits that have been going around the state of Kansas, and we've got this long list. But we put out a proposal to actually build 3 more kits, and the Grand Lodge of Kansas came through and funded that proposal. So we're in the process of building 3 more kits. It's going to give us 5 mobile kits going out to lodges in Kansas to do just that. So hasn't been officially announced. Everyone that's watching this right now is getting that behind the scenes first notice of that. But the program is growing. It's doing amazing things. It's been impacting jurisdictions all across the country and even beyond. We've talked to brothers as far away as Scotland that are mimicking the program we have here. Massachusetts is duplicating our program. Several other jurisdictions we've had meetings with to help them get set up in that same fashion as well. But really, so many different layers of it. It is going to protect that history, but also change the game of Masonic research from what we ever have known before. But it's just one of those things, we have those fire safes and stuff like that, but we never know when that tornado is going to come or when that fire does come. And as good as those fire safes are, it's probably going to be dust on the inside, just from the overall heat. But to preserve that, yeah, 100%. But to be able to preserve that, and then you have that, that hard data secured for years to come. Let's see. We've got Brother Hackney in the comments here saying, "I'm hoping to start something like that here in Arkansas. Shoot me a direct message, and I will get you linked up with Brother Justin Staley, who is also on here. He might be sending you a message right now and can get you that information to help you guys get set up, at least with the knowledge that we've gained from setting ours up here in Kansas."
And I would say, along with that, it provides a really great way that if you do have the space and you do have maybe an area in your lodge that you're not quite sure what to do with, when you do go through those records and you do find some of that really cool stuff, if you've got a way to display that, you've got a way to actually incorporate that into your lodge. Because I don't know how many people we've had from our lodge that see some of the giant old banners that we've collected, and we've got a display place up front that's got a lot of
that's right
in the lodge. And so when we have gentlemen that are coming in and interested in the lodge, they see that kind of stuff, and they may ask questions about it, and what's that, and what do you do with this? And it's a great conversation starter. It's a really cool way to display some of the history and artifacts that you actually do find as part of your lodge.
Yeah, I especially being there for Masonicon, I got a chance to see some of that stuff within those cases, and even in your back room, back behind the east there. Tell me a little bit about some of the stuff that you guys have came across in the years.
So we at the height of Rosedale's popularity and membership, we also had a DMLA chapter with us, as well as an OES chapter, and sorry, I'm blanking on this one. Scottish Rite. Or no, not Scottish Rite. It was just DMLA and OES. I believe Rainbow Girls as well at some point. But so we still have all of that stuff. We reached out to those organizations to see if they wanted any of it. Of course, nobody wants to pick all that up. So we've got ropes from DMLA from probably 50, 60 years ago. We've got the giant pentagonal light structures from the OES that are in actually really great condition. we've got some chairs that were probably some of the original Rosedale officer chairs. So they're the old wood construction with the pole grain backs on them and the curved backs, and they're really cool. And they're hanging up in the back. That's one of those things that's a little harder to display chairs, but yeah, they're hanging up back. But yeah, we've got a whole display of original members of the lodge, original masters of the lodge, some letters and things like that. At some point, we got one of those displays from Joe Namath with the signature on it and the original rules for basketball and things like that. So,
Really?
yeah,
That's cool. That's
it's
very
actually
cool.
up in our lobby right now. But yeah, it's a lot of little things just from our lodge that probably wouldn't be of a lot of interest to people in other lodges, but it's definitely a part of our history. So we definitely want to safeguard it the best we can.
Definitely. Well, it's always one of those questions you have to ask because you find some of the craziest stuff hidden away in Masonic lodges. Sometimes they don't even know what it is, but it's been sitting on their shelves for years. So every time I get a chance to, peek around, it's like you find some really, really cool stuff there.
Yeah. And we found a lot of the stuff that we have in our library now. I know they kind of showed it to you. We're trying to start our own little library that we've got a whole catalog for and little checkout system for. So, but a lot of those books that you find, you want to add those to the collection and make sure that those are taken care of and properly stored. Our preparation room that we turned into a genuine room reflection to be able to find things like the scales and the old candlesticks and things like that, to be able to reuse those from the old lodge and be able to reuse them in a way that is meaningful and really adds to the ambiance.
Yeah, most definitely. And your room of reflection is extremely well done. Really, really like what you guys did with that space there. And the growing library was awesome as well. I was noticing some of the really cool titles that you guys have in there, and I hope to see that grow. And hopefully it's, a flourishing asset for the members of your lodge.
Well, it's funny because it was a brother of ours, our brother Cooper Healy. He really wanted to take that project and run with it. And I was totally for it. Obviously that's great. It would be great to have something like that.
Right.
But in the back of my mind, I'm like, are we really going to be checking out books from the library at our own lodge? But sure enough, the guys were checking out books, and he was having to keep track of them and make sure that they brought them back. And I'm like, okay, that's great. You guys,
if it works, it works.
Yeah.
So really weird, nerdy question. The room that you guys have turned into the library, what was that previously?
It was just a really unaffordable. It was like there was a couple small coat racks in there for guys that would get the coats off before they went to the lodge, and an old cabinet full of the old jewels and stuff like that. I mean, it was just a junk room that stuff just got thrown into. But again,
fair enough.
It was one of those opportunities where you go through it, you keep what you really want to, and hold on to the things important, and make something new and better out of it. So. Again, I would encourage any lodge. We had a couple of shelves in our old preparation room, kind of where we just kind of put all the books that we had collected. But to really organize all your books into a nice little library, if you've got the space, is something I would definitely highly recommend as well.
100%. And it's a neat way to bring those spaces into the future because we don't utilize those coat racks and those, coat rooms as much as we used to in the past. Those were definitely a necessity in the days past, but today you don't really see them utilized as much. So that is an awesome way to repurpose, that type of a space into something useful for the modern day. So well done.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny because we got the floors redone from the SonicCon, and they had to take our old giant coat racks out, and they just threw them outside to get them out of the way. And now I'm like, do we really even want to put them back in? Let's just tear them down and throw them out. Like, how many people are going to use a coat rack? Just throw your coat on the back of the chair and call it good, like the normal person.
Exactly. So now, when you guys had the current building for Rosedale constructed, do you know if there was a time capsule put in at all?
There was not. We just had the rededication ceremony with Grand Lodge that came out to the building, and that's if you see pictures of the lodge, it's not necessarily a cornerstone, but we have a little separate stone that's out front that we actually used for the ceremony out there. And that was in 1991. We had the 100-year anniversary, and they came out for that, and that was a whole big deal. And if you come to Rosedale, we've got their little blue books. It's about, I should actually get you one next time I see it. You probably actually like it. It's a history of Rosedale for the past 100 years.
Yeah, definitely.
They put one together, just listing all of the members and major events and things like that. But yeah, it's a neat little book. It's a neat little read, and that ceremony was 1991 at 100 years. So I know Overland Park just had their 100 years. We were technically before them, so I just want to make a note of that as well. I love the guys at Overland Park. They're great friends of mine. I just like them.
Oh yeah, they're fantastic guys, and did a phenomenal job rehabbing their Masonic temple.
Oh my gosh,
just not too long ago as well.
So cool. I walked in, I was blown away. I'm sure you were too.
Oh yeah. So just night and day different from anything you ever experienced there. I feel a little bad that like that whole project kind of came out of nowhere for them. I think they were planning to replace a few boards or something. Replace the entire building essentially.
Wait, you always renovate. You don't take out and destroy, because once you take something out, then it's it's all over. You just want to freshen it up. You want to tear start tearing stuff down.
But got to give them props where it's due. They took a tough situation that was thrown at them, and they really did the absolute best with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite amazing. Quite amazing.
Well, and I don't know if you know, they were meeting at Rosedale during that renovation.
Yeah.
We were there home away from home for over a year and a half. The poor guys, they thought it was just going to be a few weeks or maybe a couple months while they were doing that. And ended up being a permanent resident over at Rosedale for a year. But it was a different night, so we were glad to have them. And we always help each other out with degree work and things like that. So we were glad to have them.
That's one of those beautiful factors about, Freemasonry, because we often kind of get tied up in our own lodge and stuff of that. But to see that Masonic community kind of coming together outside of those constraints is always an amazing thing, and just, goes to show that larger extent of brotherhood that definitely exists beyond the factors of our lodge or those walls of our lodge.
One of the things that we tell every inner apprentice after they're initiated is, no matter where you go in the city, if you want to go see a first degree in another lodge, we will absolutely go with you and make sure that you can go see it, because one of the best things you can do, and I'm sure you've said it over and over again, is to travel.
Yep.
And I remember when I first became a Master Mason, and I was still kind of, I'm technically a Master Mason, but I don't really know anything yet. I don't know anything for the rituals or anything like that. I was hesitant to travel even then, because I was like, well, I don't really know anybody, or, XYZ, whatever excuse you want to make. But once I really started to kind of learn some parts and felt comfortable and strong enough to really put myself out there and go and travel and actually volunteer and help with degree work in other places and go see these degrees at the lodges and help out here and there, that's when I think my Masonic journey really took a step up, because you may start to make those connections, you meet those guys, you get those numbers, and when it comes time, they're there to help you, and you're there to help them, and you can see degree work being done in different lodges, how they do it, how their lodge works, and it's so much fun to be able to, if you have the time and you have the opportunities to take advantage of them.
Fully agree. I mean, yeah, if you're not traveling, you are missing out in so many different ways. And I mean, that goes from the lodge down the street to the lodge across state line to the lodge on the other side of the country. When you have a chance to travel and meet new brothers, definitely take advantage of that, because it's one of the, like many things in Masonry, it's hard to put into words, but there is something really special about it.
When we went on a trip to Washington, D.C., everybody else wanted to do typical DC stuff, and I just wanted to go see the Southern Jurisdiction building and the Washington Masonic Memorial. Nobody wanted to go with me, but that's okay.
I was there, and I still need to go see those things. When we were there, I was there for Brother Joe Martinez was being installed as master, so we went out to have fun with him. Of course, it was kind of during COVID time, so George Washington Memorial was kind of closed down, and someone was hinting at me if I'd reach out, I could probably get a private tour. I felt bad. But what we did plan was to go to the House of the Temple there. And I blame brother Brad Drew if he's watching. We were going to go on Thursday, my wife and I, and he messaged me, goes, hey, I'm getting in tomorrow morning on a Friday. Wait for me. I'll go with you guys. Okay, perfect. So we meet up with him Friday. We go down there. We pay the $35 or whatever it is for parking 4 or 5 blocks away, walk all the way down there. They're closed on Fridays. I was like, man, and this is probably the only time I'm going to be in Washington, D.C. So now it's an excuse that we have to get back out there. We still had a really amazing trip. We couldn't get into the House of the Temple, so we got some pictures of the outside and ended up walking a few blocks. It might have been a few miles down the road, and actually found the Embassy of Ecuador, where my wife's from Ecuador, so we got to go explore that, and that was really neat. When do you get the opportunity to do that kind of stuff? But still exploring a very Masonic town with some brothers. Had a really, really great time, but definitely need to get back out there and see that. Did you got to see the inside?
Yeah, we went inside, did the whole tour. Of course, I was with my wife and my parents, and they had no idea what we were looking at, but they thought it was really cool looking, and went along with me. I was the only Mason on the tour. We had about 15, 20 people there, but I was the only Mason. Which I thought was kind of cool. I was like, that means that there's this many people that are genuinely kind of interested in this to at least come and check it out. But man, the main lodge room is your eyes are immediately drawn up because it's just massive, and it's definitely a cool experience. I recommend for anybody listening to check it out.
We'll definitely have to. It was an amazing building. They haven't really checked back to see what they were doing, but they were building some kind of like apartments or something on the backside when we were out there last. Mm-hmm. And I never really checked back to see what the end result of that was, but looked like some heavy construction going on for sure.
I'll tell you a funny story. It's completely unrelated to our topic tonight, but
it's all good.
It was kind of connected to what you were saying. My wife and I went to the UK for a vacation. Gosh, this was 7 or 8 years ago. And I wanted to make sure to go to Temple Church there in London.
Yeah.
And I was so excited. It's like, this is my chance to go to Temple Church. And we were only in London for one day. And it was the one day that freaking place was closed. And I was like, of all the things, I'm never going to come back here.
It's the way it works out, right?
I mean, seriously. That's what you get for going in the off season. It's cheaper, but everything's closed.
Exactly. Well, as we're kind of winding to the top half of the show here, we've talked all about kind of the history and the humble beginnings of the lodge, moving from the hardware to where you're at now, some of the past masters. Let's talk a little bit about the vision of the future and what kind of your plans for the modern day and going into the future are with Rosedale Lodge.
So when I was actually a master in 2020 as well. And so what happened, of course, as we all know, basically the masters that year did nothing.
Yeah.
So we had a hole in our line, and they said, "Oh, Ryan, you didn't really get to serve a full year. Would you like to do it again?" And I said, "Oh, would I? That'd be great." But and I was actually really excited to do it. So being able to fully implement a plan and at least get the lodge moving in a direction that I think is going towards the future is something that I was really passionate about and wanting to start that kickoff for. So going forward, Rosedale, I think Rosedale specifically, what I'm looking for and what I think I want the future of our lodge to be, is to be something that we're working multiple aspects of Freemasonry and trying to get them all in the same direction, if that makes sense. So I truly believe that the goals of each part of Freemasonry are interwoven. Whether that's ritual, membership, charity, leadership, education, community involvement, our work with the school systems, everything we do really is intertwined. The community outreach works with schools and works with membership. The ritual degree works with membership and works with the education. And then, of course, the charity works with all of those because that's our main goal, that's our main focus. So really what I want to start doing going forward is making sure that we're picking and choosing aspects of each of those parts of Freemasonry and making sure that we're focusing on like two or three really good ones. A lot of times, I think lodges, when they want to get a plan for the future, they say, "Oh, I'd like to do this and this and this and this and this," and it's one of those things where it's great to have so many ideas, but you really
Yeah.
need to find like just two or three charity ideas. Find two or three community involvement ideas. Find one really good idea with your public schools and your civic community to really focus on, because like we say when we're guarding the West Door, it's about quality, not quantity.
Yeah.
And so you can really bring that to what you want going forward to the lodge, to say, I want to do these really few good programs that I know are going to raise money, are going to provide a charity opportunity, are going to provide a way for us as the lodge to get our name and face out there so that we can drive membership, which helps out with the financial side, which allows us to do all these programs. So when you really look at it and you see it as this interconnectedness of possibilities, that's really what I think not only Rosedale, but I hope anybody listening tonight with their lodge going into the future is looking at and saying, are we being purposeful and are we being deliberate and adding value, as we talked about at Masonicon, to what we're really wanting to do going forward. So I hope Rosedale we're putting it in a position where structurally and beauty wise, we can really, once people are coming in or are looking at the lodge and saying, this is a really kind of a cool place, I'd like to learn more about it, and
Right.
starting from there and getting the membership to the point where they want to go out and they want to start doing these things and they want to be interacting and providing for the community. It's all these sort of little interesting ways. So hopefully that starts to spark some ideas, and we can move forward. We've got a really good group of guys that are constantly there. They're hard workers. They want to help the lodge. They want to help us succeed, and hopefully we're starting that off on the right foot, and we can really start moving in that direction going forward.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys have an amazing plan in place. Like you had mentioned, so many lodges want to take on everything under the sun, and at the end of the day, just get spread way too thin and really don't accomplish anything, or what they do accomplish isn't really notable because they're trying to do so much. To really set out that plan like you're talking about and put actual effort and dedication into it, you guys are on the right track. And I could definitely tell from my opportunity to come and visit you guys, you've got a special thing going on there. So really, really proud to be associated with you guys and have the opportunity to get to know all of you. And I'm sure Rosedale is going to be around for years to come, spreading masonry in Kansas.
Hey, here's the hope, and we appreciate everything you guys have done, and look forward to topics like this and events like Masonicon, and like we said earlier, making sure that you're not just sticking to your lodge, that you're taking advantage of the community around you, the lodges around
Right.
you, and taking advantage of opportunities like this to reach out and talk to members that you might not talked to before, and learn things you may never learned before. So I think that's a huge aspect of Freemasonry, and really it does nothing but help to serve the people that are willing to do it.
Most definitely. Well, we've got a few minutes before we kind of hit the top of the hour with our ending of the toast. Is there anything we've missed? Anything we need to address about the history or the future of Rosedale?
Oh boy.
Yeah, no pressure.
Oh yeah.
Think about the entire history in this moment.
We really definitely, if you guys are in the area, please feel free to stop by. Our state meetings are on second and fourth Wednesdays at 7:30, and we usually try to have a little meal ahead of time for those as well. But everybody that comes to our lodge always is just blown away by the lodge room, particularly by the ceiling and the beams. And I didn't know if we were going to have pictures or not. That would have been cool if we had pictures, but we don't. Right. But yeah, it's a beautiful building, and it's gorgeously made. If you're into architecture and mid-century and later structures, you definitely will appreciate the wood work that we have going on. But it's always funny because I tell people at some of the lodges, either their lodges are named after a member of their original, maybe their regional community, or they're named after the city that they're in. And people always say, who's Mr. Rosedale, or I don't know
Yeah.
Rosedale. I don't know of Rosedale. Aren't you guys in Meriam? And it's funny because there's so many people that don't realize that Rosedale was a vital part of the Kansas City community.
Yeah.
And we were originally in the neighborhood of Rosedale. It was never actually a city. It was just a community, a lot like, Shawnee Mission is a post office code, but and everything's called Shawnee Mission, but it's not actually technically a place. It's just an
Right.
area. So it's one of those things that when we moved out there to Meriam, we kept that name because it was important to us. It was the founding of the lodge was in Rosedale. So being able to keep that and make sure that generations to come were confused by the name and the location was important to us. So we made
Yeah.
sure that we sure
No,
to do that.
it's really cool. And like I said, I mean, I felt really dumb not having connected the two because I've pondered on that before. I mean, I know there's Rosedale, Kansas, or that part of town, but I never connected that exactly to the lodge. And one thing I've got to go look and see if I can find like the dispensation and all this stuff, but because in those early days, the Grand Lodge was really, really picky about letting a lodge go outside of its jurisdictional limits of like, if it was in Kansas City, Kansas, to then come over to what is now, Meriam or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I would love to find out more about the conversation and the allotment of Grand Lodge, letting the lodge move through different cities. And there's got to be a cool story there. It's probably really lame, but it'd be cool to guys like me.
It's probably in the book. I'll get you a book. But that is true. There's very few times when you actually will be able to allowed to move a lodge from one place to another. But yeah, we were very fortunate and happy to include uh, Roger Sherman Westgate into our lodge. Gosh, it's been almost 2 years ago now that they joined into our lodge, and we got a few really good guys out of that, and uh, just growing from there. And it's been great. Like I said, I didn't become a Mason in Kansas, but I really became a Mason in Kansas,
Right.
and I've been very blessed and very happy with the lodge that I chose. And there's the guys there have been great every step of the way. We've seen guys come and go, and it's the highlight of my week. I know to be able to go down and see those guys again, and especially the past couple of years. So many people didn't leave the house, and there was that sense of individual isolation. So Kansas overall, I think did a really good job of communicating and making those meetings work for the gentleman that wanted to come to the meetings because
Yeah.
of those situations. And I'm proud to say that Rosedale came out of that, and we're growing from there, and being able to share that with these new guys. I mean, we've got so many young guys, and I think Oakland Park does too. But yeah, it's just so cool to have such an average young age compared to a lot of other lodges, around the country. And to
Yeah.
be able to say that, our three principal officers are all under 40. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's definitely not the norm. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But it's extremely refreshing to see. And it really makes me excited. Like we talked about in the very beginning, that section of Johnson County as a whole. I mean, we see downtown Overland Park, we see the Meriam, Shawnee area, all kind of revitalizing and, sparking new life. And you see that in the lodges too. You see that new generation coming through, and it really excites you because you see that hope for the future of Masonry, where when you look too much at the big picture, it can get really bleak at times. We see, the declining numbers and stuff, but when you put in the work and you provide the right atmosphere, use the quote, you build it, they will come, I guess, right? If you put that there, you do see that next generation starting to latch in and spread their wings. And you guys are really providing an amazing atmosphere for them to do so.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, we are coming up at the top of the hour. We typically end these off with a little toast. And I was going to see if you would do the honor of providing us a little toast this evening.
Oh my gosh, I am
No pressure.
I'm without a drink. Give me a second here.
Yeah.
Mason glass. Sorry, I've got two small children, so I don't do a lot of drinking. I just have to drink my water out of my mason jar.
That works. Honestly, the only time I'd really drink outside of an event is taking a toast on this show. But because we toast every show with a little glass of whiskey, everyone thinks I'm a whiskey aficionado, and I get all these like comments asking about different brands and everything. I'm like, you're asking the wrong guy. Go for the coolest looking bottle.
Just get yourself some Woodward Reserve, and you're fine. You're good to go.
There you go.
So I'm just toasting here.
Yeah, just give us a toast, end off the show however you see fit.
To all the Masons here and abroad, to all the widows and orphans who are in need out there, this is for you. May God bless us all, look after us all, and may Masonry stay strong, survive, thrive, and always remember to help those in need.
You're here. Cheers. Brother, thank you so much for joining us this evening. You've opened my eyes, made me feel a little stupid, never made that connection, and now I got to dig in a little deeper. But you guys honestly have a great history. You're a fantastic lodge. I've always enjoyed the connection of it resembling Lenexa and kind of seeing that little bit of tie in there. Got Gary, gotta love Gary. You guys are really setting the path for an amazing future of Freemasonry within Kansas. So it was an honor to be able to sit with you this evening, and please tell your family thank you as well for letting us steal you away for a little bit to pick your brain on the history of Rosedale.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a very, very interesting, very cool adventure. I like it.
Fantastic. Well, man, it's been an honor. We will see you guys again soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining in with us live this evening. And until next time, keep preserving the history of Freemasonry. Have a great night.